Alright, hello guys, what's going on? This is the Mr. Rant here, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Star Wars Battlefront and my disappointments with the new game. Where do I start? So, I know a lot of people are talking about it and they're saying to take it more of a casual game and not think of it as an actual sequel to Battlefront 2, but that's just something that I can't do. Battlefront 2 had a lot of meaning to me in my life. It was something that I would do pretty much every day after school. It was really something that I could look forward to. And the best thing about it was that Battlefront 2 could be taken both competitive and casual, and I think it lended more to the casual side anyways. So with that being said, why would DICE and EA sacrifice all the features that Battlefront 2 had just to add better graphics? Don't get me wrong, the game looks really nice, but I'm not paying for good graphics, I'm paying for good gameplay. And I don't think Battlefront really offers that with what it has right now. Yeah, I'm so upset with this, I don't even want to call it Battlefront because it's not. It's very watered down, everything's done with power-ups, and you don't even have an actual loadout. Your loadout is, again, based on cooldowns and power-ups. You have as many thermal detonators as you live. You don't have to worry about resupplying. And you had to resupply in Battlefront 2. You had to go and you had to find an ammo bot or a health bot, and I think it was the engineer that had the deployable health kits, that health and ammo kits. So it's just amazing, because if you look at Battlefront 2 and you look at Battlefield 3, there's a lot of parallels between the two. You had engineers with repair tools. In Battlefront 2, you had a heavy class that would have the actual rocket launcher instead of the engineer. So the engineer was really one of the weaker classes, and if you wanted to play as an engineer, you had to either work with the vehicles or the turrets and just stay behind your teammates, because the primary for the engineer was a shotgun. I think that should be changed, whether through a mod or a new rendition, but obviously Battlefront, this new one, is not really holding true to the mechanics of Battlefront 2 or Battlefront 1 for that matter. And I can just keep going and talk about the list of the lack of features. Battlefront 2 had 30 some odd maps, it had special modes, it had capture the flag, it had the conquest mode. There was a lot of stuff you could do in Battlefront 2, and to this day I'm still very surprised with all the content that you have in Battlefront 2. It's something that, like I said, I used to play it a lot. I used to play it on my PS2, and I pretty much played the game till the disc is starting to crap out on me. I've gotten to the point where the audio just loops in certain areas and in certain maps. The audio just loops, it doesn't even finish. Sometimes the audio just quits entirely. But I still play it. I will still play it because it is really well designed. And it's something that not only looked good when it came out, it still looks good now. Maybe not as good as definitely not as good as the new Battlefront, but it's very tolerable. And I just don't understand why, with EA having the offer from Disney, LucasArts being shut down and whatnot, why they don't have access to previous coding, to previous features. I don't know why they don't want to do that. And I know that Disney might want to try and have a vice grip on this project and try to make it what they want. But it's just a real shame that they strayed from what was something that was casual but could be taken competitive and could be taken seriously to something that's completely casual. And overall, I'm just upset. I know that I certainly won't be buying Battlefront anytime soon. And it's not because the game doesn't look good, it's not even because the game doesn't play good either, but it's because everything is based so casual. You have to rely on your power-ups that are placed down randomly, that spawn randomly. In Battlefront 2, you had to actually earn the power up to become a Jedi or a Sith or a special character. You couldn't just sit around, run around, wait till you see a power up and then grab it. You had to actually fight for that power up. It's just amazing how they're going to just allow everyone to be Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker or Boba Fett or anyone else. And I'm not saying that the lesser skilled players should never play as a Jedi or a special character, but you know what's going to happen. They're just going to run in willy-nilly, they're going to go through, and they're going to die within the first 5 seconds because they think that they're invincible. Battlefront 2 kind of had a remedy for that as well, because there's a special mode on instant action, which this Battlefront will not have, by the way, where you selected Tatooine, you selected a special game mode, and every single special character was available to play. And instead of running around as troopers or clones or anything, you ran around, you had the entire team running around as special characters. And I remember going to a friend's house, we had 4 players and we all played Tatooine. That was pretty much one of the few maps that we played because everyone got to be the Jedi, everyone got to be where they wanted to be. And it's just funny and sad that EA, DICE, Disney don't want to do that. They want to give you a more of a cinematic experience and toss out everything that made Battlefront 2 successful other than the name Star Wars and Battlefront. It's a shame. Again, it's another shame because DICE is really the team to develop this game. They worked on Battlefield 2, they worked on Battlefield 3 and 4, and I know people are saying they don't want a Star Wars Battlefield, but Battlefront 2, like I said, had a lot of parallels with the Battlefield series, and more specifically closer to Battlefields 3 and 4, because Battlefront 2 does play very arcade-like. I'm sorry, graphics don't impress me. The explosions and everything, they look great, but they don't impress me. So if that's what the selling factor is, look at how beautiful the landscape is, look how beautiful the textures and the models are. I can just watch pictures, I can watch other people play that. I don't need to waste my time or my money to look at that. I can just watch it on YouTube, watch the trailers. I'd rather watch that, watch people play the game than actually play it. Everyone's saying that the skill cap, the skill level is very low because of how easy it is to move around, how easy it is to aim, and whatnot. And I know they're saying that even though the skill cap is low, you have, more experienced players will be more useful and will still be able to pull out whatever they want. But there's nothing here that really interests me. It's the one thing about shooters that I actually hate, where you just have objectives that are there for the sake of being objectives, and then everyone just fights either around it or anywhere, and just becomes a disorganized mess. I'm not saying Battlefront 2 was the best game out there, because it's not. There were a number of flaws. There are a number of flaws with the game. But I'd rather see a team pick up Battlefront 2 and tweak it, optimize it, make an HD remake if they wanted to. Just make it up to date without removing all the features. And pretty much that's exactly what DICE and EA did. They took Battlefront 2, they scrapped it completely, actually, and they made this. And I'm not going to say that DICE is a bad company, because they're not, and they're heavily monitored and they're heavily tasked by EA to do whatever EA wants them to do, which is a shame. But if it were possible, I'd rather see DICE work as their own development team. I'd rather see DICE make their own games rather than being the sweat house for EA. It's the same issue that you kind of had a couple of years ago with Treyarch, where you had the lead developers that were working on Call of Duty, and then they left I think it was from Treyarch, anyways. But they left because they got tired of making Call of Duty games, and I just don't know how long DICE. I mean, I know DICE is a huge company, and there's probably a ton of contracts and legal stuff to try and make sure that everyone in DICE stays in DICE. But, you know, I would love to see DICE actually leave EA and make their own games rather than having to work under EA and make whatever EA wants them to make. And I mean, I could say the same could go for a number of other companies like Visceral. You know, them being forced, not forced per se, but them having to work on the Battlefield hardline. And Visceral, to their credit, they did a pretty good job with hardline. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that, and they're going to say that hardline is just a mod and yada yada yada. But I actually enjoyed hardline more than I enjoyed Battlefield 4, just on the fact that there were less explosives. You had a lot more skill involved with hardline when it came to the infantry combat. The only problem was that there wasn't enough anti-armor or anti-vehicle weapons to go around, and that's not why hardline failed. Hardline failed just because it was just too similar to Battlefield 4, and everyone saw it for what it is, just another way for EA to make money. But if Visceral had really wanted to make this, if they were able to work on the game on their own and find either someone else to publish or for themselves to publish the game, I could see Hardline to be very successful. And even though they would have to pretty much come up with all the models and characters and textures, since they pretty much used everything that DICE had from Battlefield 4, I would still enjoy Hardline. I would still be interested in Hardline because I like the cops and robbers kind of thing, and I would most likely still buy that different version of Hardline because of just how much work Visceral Games have put into the game and still are with all the DLCs. But anyways, going back on track, I'm not going to say that this new Battlefront is going to be bad, but it's definitely not going to have the kind of replay value that Battlefront 2 had for me, and it's not going to have that kind of immersion in the way of, like, I'm actually fighting for my life, I'm actually fighting in a battlefield, I'm actually, you know, and I know that that's going to be more of an objective kind of thing where I'm part of the battlefield just because the game looks good, versus I'm part of the battlefield because I actually have to do what I actually have to be a part of the fight. I can't just sit around and look at all the clouds and smoke and explosions and turrets and whatnot and all the lasers. I mean, the game does look visually good, but that's pretty much all I can say for it. Yeah, and I know the casual market is what EA, DICE, and Activision and everyone looks for. But I would just love to see games be games again. You know, I get more excited for the next indie game than I do for the next big AAA title. It's getting to the point where the indie games are going to have more content than your AAA titles. Look at Rainbow Six Siege, for example. That game has gotten rid entirely of a single player campaign, and that was like one of the staples for Tom Clancy to pretty much always have a challenging single player campaign. And for a title such as Rainbow Six Siege to just throw that out the window, is pretty unresponsible of Ubisoft and the developers. So I don't know what's going to be happening with gaming as of late, but I'm not looking forward to it. If the only thing people are looking forward to is just seeing more pixels and seeing more high definition graphics rather than core gameplay, I don't really want to consider myself a gamer at that point. I'd rather consider myself, I don't know, I don't know what I would consider myself after that. These games are just getting more and more bland and more empty and less immersive. Even though their graphics are better, they actually have less content and less depth than a lot of older games, and a lot of games that I grew up with, and a lot of games that I still play today, just because of the kind of immersion and the kind of world that they introduced me to. So, with that being said, that's my take on Battlefront. I'm not going to get it. I'm not even going to rate it because it's just not worth. It's just not worth it. That's my conclusion. I'm going to stick to that. People are going to hate me for it. People are going to like me for it. I don't care. It's my opinion, and people are going to enjoy this game. But I'd be very surprised to see people play this for a longer period of time than Battlefront 2. And you know, and unless DICE has something up their sleeve with a DLC or two that will give the game a little more depth to it, it'll give it a little more fun, a little more modes and whatnot. Maybe Battlefront will become what it once was, but the way it is, it's nothing. It's a nothing compared to what it is now.